A day after a harrowing assault on American democracy by pro-Trump mob defeated an outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump is now facing growing calls for his ouster and a staff exodus. Trump has just got about 12 days left in his term, and there are now numerous demands for his ouster, including by the Senate's top Democrat and also a Republican congressman. The U.S. Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer has called on Vice President Mike Pence to remove Trump under the Constitution's 25th Amendment. The amendment allows the cabinet members to oust a president who's been deemed incapacitated to serve. At least one Republican and 19 Democrats in the House of Representatives have also called for the step. The U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has further added that impeachment is also an option.
In calling for this seditious act, the President has committed an unspeakable assault on our nation and our people. I join the Senate Democratic leader in calling on the Vice President to remove this President by immediately invoking the 25th Amendment. If the Vice President and the Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment.
The quickest and most effective way to remove this President from office would be for the Vice President to immediately invoke the 25th Amendment. The Vice President can invoke the 25th Amendment today, and if the Cabinet votes, he's gone. They should do it now. If the Vice President and the Cabinet refuse to stand up, Congress should reconvene to impeach the President. Plain and simple. We don't need a lengthy debate. The President's abuse of power, his incitement of a mob against the duly elected representative body of the United States is a manifestly impeachable offense. If there ever was an impeachable offense, what the President did was it.
Meanwhile, Trump ally Republican Senator Lindsey Graham spoke out against Trump's actions. Lindsey Graham is one of Trump's top congressional allies. He said that Trump must accept his own role in the violence that occurred at the U.S. Capitol. He also slammed the president's legal team on misinformation. Members of Trump's cabinet and allies of the Republican president have discussed invoking the provision of the U.S. Constitution to remove him from office.
There's been a constant effort by people from the president's legal team to provide misinformation, to distort the facts, to make accusations that cannot be proven. That needs to stop. As to the 25th Amendment being invoked, I do not believe that's appropriate at this point. I'm looking for a peaceful transfer of power. I'm looking for the next 14 days to reset, and we will hand off power in a traditional sense by being a peaceful transfer.
All right, so these are the developments that are presently taking place in the United States. And to put all of this in perspective, we are joined in by our correspondent, Jagrati Dave, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Now, Jagrati, this is rather interesting, the manner in which the Democrats are now stating that the Vice President and the Cabinet should invoke Article 25, Amendment 25. If they do not do so, then the Democrats would be forced to start impeachment proceedings. You know, is this something that's likely to happen?
Well, look, there is a lot of pressure on the United States president right now. There's a lot of pressure on Vice President Mike Pence. First, of course, it was from the president himself trying to get him to obstruct the passing of those electoral votes in Congress. But now that's all done and dusted. After the events of Wednesday, Vice President Mike Pence, is facing pressure from leading Democrats to invoke the 25th Amendment that would see him, the Vice President, take control of the country, take the helm of the country if the President is found to be incapable of performing his duties. That's never happened before. The Vice President and the Cabinet would have to invoke this, and Congress would have to have a majority vote. So again, there's an issue of whether there would be the numbers in Congress in terms of voting this through. There's the issue of timing, given that there is less than 2 weeks to go until Joe Biden becomes the next president of the United States in that inauguration on January the 20th.
Absolutely indeed. But what is being discussed right now within the Republican circles? Because what has played out in the United States, in the Capitol, in the last 24, 48 hours is a huge embarrassment, not just for the Americans, but also for the Republican Party itself within American politics. How would the Republicans want to take this forward? Because if they were to start something like, at least talk about invoking Amendment 25, then they would come out much cleaner in front of the American public.
Well, there's differing views on this. There are some Republicans who are in agreement that the president needs to be removed. There are some former officials, White House officials, who are also saying this. Former Chief of Staff at the White House, John Kelly, was talking to CNN, and he was asked by Jake Tapper whether he would, if he was in the cabinet now, if John Kelly was in the cabinet, would he vote to invoke the 25th Amendment? And John Kelly said that he would. So you have people like that. On the other hand, you do have people like Senator Lindsey Graham, who you played a clip of him there, a staunch ally of President Trump. Whilst he said enough is enough on the Senate floor the other day, he also is saying that now is not the appropriate time just yet to invoke the 25th Amendment. But he said that everything's on the table should something else happen. So I think when you've got even the president's allies distancing themselves from him, it's a very difficult position that the president's in, but it's a difficult position for the Republican Party. They are doing some incredible soul-searching right now as to what kind of party they want to be, what will be the impact, the legacy of Trumpism on their party, on the GOP, and what they're going to do about it, given the astonishing events that we saw in the Capitol on Wednesday.
Absolutely indeed. And also in the clip that we played out, we also heard Nancy Pelosi and also Chuck Schumer say that if the Republicans don't invoke Amendment 25, then the Democrats within the Congress may have to initiate impeachment proceedings. With just about 12 days to go before the presidency of Donald Trump is to come to an end, how likely is it that the Democrats will push for impeachment proceedings?
I mean, they're in discussions right now, and look, again, the timing is another issue, how fast they can get this through. All of these procedures take time, and as we've talked about, there's less than 2 weeks to go. There is a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of momentum. A lot of people, a lot of Congress, a lot of House Democrats are saying that they are drafting articles. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes as the president is becoming increasingly isolated, according to reports in the White House. And you're also seeing a spate of resignations, the latest being Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary, the second cabinet minister to resign as a direct result of what happened in Washington, D.C. The first, of course, being Elaine Chao, the Transport Secretary. This is an untenable situation. You also have the Wall Street Journal, a strong, not exactly a liberal newspaper, a leftist newspaper, calling for Donald Trump to resign. So, there's a lot of momentum, a lot of pressure, and I think this is going to be a fast-moving story as we look ahead. But as I say, there are still several days to go between now and the inauguration, despite President Trump saying that in that video that his focus now is on the smooth transition of power. There is still a lot of pressure and lots of calls from all quarters for President Trump to leave office before that transition of power has taken place.
Absolutely indeed. 12 days of Trump presidency, but 12 days, they say, is a long time in politics. Thank you very much indeed, Jagrati Dave, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.